Are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin.
He's making a list, checking it twice. Gonna find out who's naughty and nice. Protect me from what I want. Protect me from what I want. Protect me from what I want. Protect me, protect me.
Well, hello there, and welcome to episode 87 of There's Still Time, the AFTN podcast. I'm Michael McColl.
I'm Steve Pandher.
I'm Jay Duke.
I'm Zach Meisenheimer.
And I'm Lamothe.
And we are super excited because it's hard not to get excited at this time of year. It's draft time!
It's so cold, it's draft time.
Yeah.
Get a
It's
draft.
so wet. We've decided to pick the wettest night, I think, in the history of Vancouver to record this podcast. But we're going to have a look over what's been a pretty busy week so far for Vancouver Whitecaps. Mm-hmm. And today, it was Expansion Draft Day. Whitecaps only lost one player, Mehdi Ballouchy. Anyone upset to see him go? Zach, I'm sure you appreciated him.
Of course. Yeah, Mehdi was involved. Okay, so he didn't make a huge, crazy contribution on the pitch that we all look at and say, oh, look at he did that and he did this and that. But I think what Mehdi Ballouchy brought was a veteran presence who was good for our younger players, our younger squad, who's played in MLS, who can be brought onto the key possession of the ball and help us win matches. And he did that, not as much as he would have liked to, partly because of me.
Is there anybody that you can actually come on the podcast one of these days and go, yeah, you know that guy from 2 years ago? He was a dick, and I don't like him.
Well, there are some players. What was that? I didn't get that.
I didn't hear what it was. I heard
There are some people who
some
are...
Buckley's there. You shouldn't have a bad foot.
There are some people who are, maybe not as enjoyable to hang out with or spend time with or whatever, and who haven't contributed as much.
But they're footballers. You're not there to spend time with them.
And that's where we have to.
Yeah, we had this discussion.
You know what I always appreciated about Mehdi Ballouchy was that every time I saw him in the squad, there was that moment of excitement where you were like, "Who's the new guy?"
Because you forget he was on the team.
You'd forget, right?
Oh
no, that's
genuinely at training, I was like, "Oh, who's that guy?"
Especially when he cut his hair short, it was long, and then it went short, and then you're like,
then he got the beard, not beard, but had this.
You know, he's darker. You're like, is this a new Spanish? No, attacking. No.
He did impress me a few times at training, but sadly not in the moments that he came on the pitch. I don't think he's a big loss because of the position that he played, and you also have someone like Ben McKendry waiting in the wings who can come in and do exactly the same role that Ballouchy's done without the risk of getting injured, hopefully.
But with less experience. That's the only issue that you would have with Ballouchy.
And to be fair, I did write this week that the Whitecaps do need to get some experienced faces in, and we've now lost one of the few experienced guys we've got.
Yeah.
But I do think there's better out there.
Yeah.
But there's still, when you look at MLS, the average lifespan of a player in the league. So, like, when you think of experience, we don't think of Russell Tybert as experienced, but really, in MLS, he's probably way up in the top 20%.
Yeah, Gershon Kofi's played 100 games.
Gershon Kofi, yeah. So you throw those guys in with Harvey, who's been around a while, you know. I don't.
No, what they need is they need they don't need to totally fill their bench, but they need a few bench players. We don't need starters right now that are totally experienced, but we need few bench players here and there that can have a splash that aren't expecting time on the pitch too much, but will contribute once they get on the pitch.
You just don't want to have the Pete Vagina who's there Vagenas.
Pass back Pete.
Yeah, who's the rest of the squad's looking at it going, well, what's this guy taking my spot for, man?
Yeah, when did
so you
Grandpa
don't
get
want
here?
that.
I
'cause that's
concur.
disruptive.
I
He concurs.
Oh, we found one.
concurs.
We found one.
I do not. Yeah, I didn't know. I
do not appreciate
I never
it,
talked to
but
Pete, but
yeah.
yeah, I did not. Yeah.
Zach is not a fan of vaginas. There we have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's a shocker for us. I disagree with Steve.
What was Seaman? What was his name there?
David Seaman.
David Seaman. That was a pretty exciting few moments when they were on the pitch together for a while in 2011. We had Vagenas and Seaman fighting for balls. That was.
I don't remember.
I could show you the footage.
Anyway, I disagree with Steve. I do think we need some experienced players in the team because that's what.
I just said we do.
You said
Wait,
no, like starting.
I don't think we need
What-
that many starters.
I think we do.
I think we have a
because we need to get the job done.
Yeah.
And these guys choke every now and again, or they can't bring their game regularly. You've got LA, who've got these experienced guys who can win things and they know about winning, and that's what helped them win another MLS Cup.
I'm just saying they don't need that many experienced
Don't need that
starters.
many, but we do need some.
I
Yeah.
agree with you that we need that. It would be nice to have one more guy who's been around the league for a while, knows the league, and not a guy like Mehdi Ballouchy who barely made your 18 every week. Because can he help in the dressing room? And sure, absolutely, but it's not the same as a guy who's playing a lot of minutes, even if it's not every single game, as long as he's playing a lot of minutes for your team. But the problem with that is, what player out there in one of the positions that the Whitecaps are in need for is available within reason within the MLS that you don't have to give up something so amazingly.
No starters from MLS should be starting, brought in for the Whitecaps.
This is what I'm saying, though.
Yeah, so they're going to bring the two starting positions they need one starting striker, as long as they bring back Rosales, and one starting winger. Okay,
so
those two guys should be from outside MLS.
Let's say even if you do want to bring in a guy who is even a spot starter or something, that's either a striker or a winger. There's not a lot of guys in the MLS right now that you pick and say, hey, we're ready to spend $350,000-$400,000 a year on.
I wouldn't spend on a bench player.
This is what I'm saying is that this is not a bench player. This is my argument with Michael here is that if you say that you want a guy this guy's going to start for you, what striker are you going to bring in that can either start once in a while for you or routinely play for you on the wing in the MLS that you can bring in on a reasonable salary and get him off the team that he's playing for right now?
What's a reasonable salary?
Well, this is what I'm saying. It's hard. It's hard to find that player that there is. Is there any out there?
Well,
would you love Robbie Keane? Sure. Can you get him? Can you pay the salary? No. Okay. So
they're going to bring
rid of him.
They're going to bring in a DP striker. They are bringing in a DP striker, whether it's Robbie Keane or they bring in somebody from outside MLS. They're bringing in a striker that's going to be highly paid.
Well, let's come to some of the MLS players later on. So the Whitecaps only lost Ballouchy in the expansion draft, but let's have a quick chat about what else happened in the expansion draft. I was glued to my television screen. I felt I wasn't actually. I was glued to my laptop screen.
Yeah, your ears were glued to it too, not even your eyes.
I felt I'd been transported into World War II, and I was huddled around the wireless trying to get Chamberlain's message of support as to how we're doing against the Nazis. It was such a surreal feeling. And then I was watching it on YouTube, and I had the comments up. And then one of the comments was like, Lovitz is gone! And they hadn't picked him yet. And I was like, is this guy just predicting Lovitz is gone? And then they picked Lovitz, and I was like, oh, this is just bizarre. So
maybe it was that Kansas City
under a pseudonym. Rest in peace. So what were your guys' thoughts just quickly on the expansion draft?
Initially, when you look at the list, and I know there's been a little bit of movement today or whatever, it looks like the Orlando City Thieves don't fully know what they're doing, whereas Jason Kreis knows more what he's doing.
Yeah, that seems pretty clear. Yeah. That's exactly what I got out of it from the end of it.
Yeah, Orlando's like, hey, this guy sounds fun.
Yeah. Hey, Anababa is a funny name. Let's get
he was. So I heard someone that
he was traded, or is going
back
to be
to
traded.
Kansas City as a part of the
Colin deal.
Yeah.
So let's start. Very first pick, Donovan Ricketts, and I was like, Oh, they mean business going for a 37-year-old.
I didn't even know why they used the first overall pick to take him too, because they could have waited.
Obviously worried that New York were going to take him.
Yeah, I don't think that was going to happen.
Right when they selected him with the first overall pick, I have completely lost all respect for the intelligence of the football club there. Like, of all the people that you could have picked, Jeff Antonella was available, who's a backup in Real Salt Lake,
and better.
Who I would have taken 100 times out of 100 over Donovan Ricketts. So what are you thinking when you're selecting this guy? It was ludicrous.
Which would have totally screwed Christ, because you knew he wanted 2 of his RSL players.
Yeah, why did they didn't go after any RSL players?
No. Take Grabavoy first and say to New York, okay, you want him, let's play some business here.
It showed their ignorance or potentially arrogance.
Unless New York had done a deal for them not to take Grabavoy.
Personally, I think though, if you remember, when they started the draft, when it was 11 o'clock, all of a sudden it says "Please stand by." I thought maybe Orlando got an offer to move the club to another city. They got last second offer. So I thought that's maybe the reason why it took so long to get back.
We have a stadium deal for you in Miami.
I thought it was going to be kind of like Generation X invading WCW. You're going to see Austin Aztecs just coming in a tank and going, "We're here now. We're picking this guy."
That would have been awesome. I really do not like the Phil Rollins. I do not like Phil Rollins or Orlando City. I can't wait. I can't wait till we play them.
Phil Rollins, Dwayne Rollins, all those guys. Anyone called Rollins. Henry Rollins is okay, but those two not big fans at all. And Danny Mwanga. Now, Slamo, you were delighted for him.
I was so stunned, yeah. I tweeted right after that, out, I hope somebody has the number to the Denver KFC, because I hear that's where he's working now. This is his first overall pick, right? How many minutes has he played in the league?
Too many, actually.
I think it's just picked because he had a funny name.
Yeah, it was such a mind-boggling pick.
And another one that Orlando was weird that they picked Tony Cascio from Colorado.
So high.
Who played since May, from May going to the end of the season, basically played 15 minutes because he was injured for most of the year.
He does have a lot of potential.
But just strange to pick him so early in the draft. Like, Colorado was done. They picked 2 players from Colorado. Mwanga was the other one. Colorado was one of the teams
that's horrible.
Plus 2 Columbus players. Where are you deciding to pick your
if it's an impact defender
and a defender?
It's still good. I honestly don't get what they were doing.
Well, you look at Flyers, right? Like, you look at New York City and they take George John, and that's like an awesome flyer. Isn't that an awesome flyer?
If he's healthy.
And Orlando's flyer, like, you look at Mwanga and you consider him a flyer. Because,
Orlando wanted to take Paul Ringo, but he didn't exist.
And Jason Hernandez, like, they have starting MLS
quality
level center backs.
It's like Jay said, it's like New York seemed to know what they were doing, Orlando didn't. Then, of course, New York, they picked Tony Taylor, that I think had most people going, who the hell is Tony Taylor?
Well, not only that, but the thing is I think a lot of people discussed it. Whenever New York would pick, they wouldn't even mention the team's name. So after every time New York picked, the guy whoever was in charge of the draft
had to look it up.
Could have been had to look it up essentially. So
10-15 seconds of silence.
There was always a pause between New York's pick and the official calling of the pick by the MLS guy. So
except for Ned Grabavoy, I think that was only
The best example was when New York picked Tony Taylor, because it's like we were thinking, who the hell's this guy? And it was clear that MLS were like, we don't have anyone called Tony Taylor.
He wasn't on our mock draft list.
Taylor's not on his shirt.
I'm pretty sure. I remember him playing the one game because 99 for New England, and I'm pretty sure it said Alejandro on the back of his kit. But I'm
might
not
have
sure.
been.
I don't know.
Because he did go to Portugal.
I might have been
or
drunk
something like that. Maybe that's his
but,
nickname there or something like that.
I don't know. Do we have video?
New York picked Tommy McNamara, who was the one Chivas guy I had hoped the Whitecaps might have actually picked up.
Showed a lot of potential in the beginning of the year. He looked pretty good.
I think the thing with the two, just based on the selections, forget all the movement after, but the two teams looking like that, the 10v10 New York would beat Orlando even without a keeper.
Yeah. My plan of action for both of them would have been just pick guys from the East, weaken your opposition. But obviously the Western Conference is a better conference, but you want to try and give yourself a better playoff shot by picking these guys.
Yeah.
But I thought it was weird.
But I think overall, I agree with Sam. I think New York City FC with these guys, with the guys they've brought in, and all those loanees from Manchester City, who's going to be paid $45,000. I think with all that, they're going to be basically the better team out of the two.
I think we can all agree that the big winners were the Portland Timbers for getting Donovan Ricketts' salary off their books and not having to give up any sort of allocation money or buyout or trade him and keep some of his salary cap in it. That's I don't know how that happened.
But according to MLS, the Timbers lost their symbol of the turnaround to Orlando City. That was their symbol, Donovan Ricketts.
Well, because he had that year.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He had the one magic year.
Yeah, oh yeah.
They're going to build statues to him.
No, fantastic. Yeah.
And once again, something which Steve had pointed out, no LA Galaxy player picked.
No, once again,
They're
another expansion
miraculous
draft
at never having their players picked.
But again, we don't know who's greased whose
Yeah,
pockets,
I
right?
mean, you had someone like Alan Gordon available.
And Gardner.
Maybe they don't need
The
a
only thing
striker,
I'll
right?
say to
And Todd
that,
Dinovant, who was a decent.
the only thing I'll say to that is that Bruce Arena doesn't seem like the kind of guy who's in the back pocket of the league. Like
He's more a dead horse in the bed of the owners of the other clubs.
But he's always talking trash. He's talking trash about the league all the time and about how the league is.
They didn't let us do whatever we wanted.
Yeah, well, whatever it is, he's publicly going against what the league.
Maybe that's what the league wants him to do.
Maybe it's all a ploy. And
But when I was down
I
to
think
Seattle covering the LA game, he actually smiled and I was standing right beside him and it was terrifying.
Bruce Arena.
Yeah.
I don't believe you.
Oh,
Unless I see photos.
I know, I should have taken photos.
Yeah, droopy.
The camera probably wouldn't have worked.
Or it wouldn't
He wouldn't have been there.
Like a spears when he smiles.
Speaking of somebody who needs to be greased to get through doors, is that what we're talking about? The Siggy Schmid.
Were we talking about greasing people through?
I don't
doors?
know.
Greasing the pockets or whatever. But
that's the shitty segue. Continue.
I like that segue.
Seattle only had one player taken too, and that was the Annie Baba. I thought they might have gotten two guys taken. They have a pretty. And you were talking about that one player that Seattle reporters were.
Michael Azira.
Yeah. As soon as
thought of high by the.
As soon as Anibaba got taken, I was like, oh, they're gonna protect Azira. I was surprised they protected Zach Scott.
They might have a deal too, though, right?
Yeah, you don't know that.
Yeah.
I think though, like Orlando took him because they were thinking Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. So it's Orlando City Thieves. So they took Alibaba. It's the closest thing.
The Weiser's brother.
So how many guys? One thing I found interesting, I can't remember Montreal exactly, but obviously remember what we did and a little bit Portland. Like there was far less moves like the day of the draft. I remember we did the draft and like that afternoon was like half those guys are gone.
Yeah, five. We were left for five players.
Yeah, five guys are gone.
Well, they've gotten Orlando's gotten rid of Annie Baba, Gehrig,
Alejandro Moreno.
And that's
Well,
it.
Orlando had to pull up the
New York City's traded Zizzo.
Probably they
love
had an
it.
hour to prepare. Right?
So each of the expansion teams got rid of two players, essentially.
Okay. So 2-2, so 4, and we did 5.
We did 5 by ourselves. Yeah.
And look how successful we were.
Yeah.
So let's. I think we
Trader
can say
Tommy.
New York won the draft. Let's see who wins between the two of them when the season kicks off.
When I'm with baby, I go out of my hands. I just can't get enough. I just can't get enough. How nothing you treat me and everything you say. I just can't get enough. I just can't get enough. We sleep is lighter in a foreign love, and I just can't see to get enough.
Grumpy Cat is finally gone.
Yeah, Omar going, not Omar coming. The Wire reference.
Oh,
You haven't watched
okay,
it.
no.
The people that watch The
I thought you
Wire
meant
will get
Omar
this.
Cummings, and I was
Yeah,
like, we
that was
never
a-
had him. It's like, but anyway, Omar's gone.
Slamo got that one.
Vaguely.
He was just being nice and laughing along with it.
And like Omar's departure was mentioned on Monday. Before we we discussed that. Let's hear what Carroll had to say about that when he faced the media at the front office on Monday afternoon.
Omar's situation is a fantastic, unique situation, I'll say. The footballing side of it is Omar wants to go and play somewhere. He was a little bit frustrated here, and I understand it in a way. But I've got 26 players that want to play every minute of every game, and unfortunately that doesn't happen. So it's the best solution for all of us, the club, for Omar, for me. And I hope he now goes and plays where he wants to play, which is the important thing.
Was this just a case of a player that needed a fresh start somewhere else?
Yeah, I think, with all players, not just young players, if you move a player, it doesn't mean that you think they're a bad player or they're a bad character. It's sometimes situations dictate what happens with players, and Omar's still the same player as he was. Obviously, when we drafted him, he was a fantastic young talent. I'm sure now he's still a fantastic young talent. He's got great potential, but he needs to play. His probably chances to play here would have been limited. So I want to give him the opportunity to go and play somewhere else, and I wish him all the best. I really do.
Can you try and explain to us in words that the public might understand why you had to go through New York City to transfer him to Mexico?
No. No, obviously with the expansion draft we can only protect 11 players, and if we try and make a sale of a player prior to the expansion draft, then it's probably gaining an advantage. So there's a deal set up with New York. We're happy with that. New York, NYFC are happy with that, and we wish the player all the best.
Carl, is it frustrating that you couldn't, get him to be the player that you think he can be? And
who's that, Omar?
Yeah.
Listen, Omar showed glimpses last year for me when he come on and when he started one or two games, but he was frustrated about not starting every game, and I understand that. I don't want players that are unhappy that when they don't start games or they don't get the game time, So I understood that in a certain way, but what I need to have as well is players that respect certain situations and certain scenarios, and there was ups and downs with Omar like there is with all my players, so I understand it in a way, but we're moving on now. Both parties are moving on.
As part of the New York deal, is there any agreement that they won't pick any of your players on Wednesday?
Maybe a friendly agreement, no, there's not an official agreement, no. I'm hoping they don't and they pass on that.
So the deal for Omar, it was a weird one. Whitecaps couldn't just transfer him to this mysterious international club, which we kind of have to think is Tigres. They had to get him to New York so that they could then do the transfer, and then the allocation money is going to get split. And Steve, you were kind of looking into how you think the allocation money might be split.
Now, I've heard this somewhere, and it could have been when that time we had that sit and talk with all the media, sat and listened to Greg Anderson talking about stuff. Somewhere where I heard where expansion teams are able to keep more of their transfer fee, any transfer fee they get, so they can keep up to 75%. Now I could be completely wrong on this, but I think I heard that somewhere. And if that's the case, then maybe they're telling New York that you keep 15% and we'll take 60%, and that way they don't lose too much. And obviously, if they had kept Salgado unprotected, he would have been picked up anyways. So that's I think they did something like that. Obviously, they haven't made a deal. They're not picking up a player for Salgado from New York, so it's
at least not yet. There could be something maybe still in the works that we don't quite know about. And
I think they would. I think if trade happened beforehand, they would have already had somebody picked up to select. So I don't think that's going to happen.
As you heard in the audio there, I asked Carroll, was there any agreement that New York wouldn't take a player, and he said maybe a friendly one. He hoped that they wouldn't, but they took Ballouchy. So that nothing happened with that anyway. But then Carroll also said that they weren't allowed to do the transfer themselves because of another MLS rule that I don't think anyone here has probably heard of, which was they weren't allowed to benefit financially before an expansion draft by doing the transfer themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, Zach, that just seems weird.
Well, dude, it's MLS, man. What do you care? No, the thing is closed for... No teams were allowed to trade except for the expansion teams. It's just to protect...
It's not really trading, you're selling a guy out with MLS. I just don't see how the Whitecaps weren't allowed to do that.
It's probably because there was like some sort of a roster freeze before the expansion, and they couldn't, so they can't actually sell him. They either have to make him available for the expansion, or they have to... If they could, but New York could, because they're not a team in the league eligible for being selected. From
I just still think it's a stupid rule.
It's totally stupid.
They clearly had something going on back in September.
Yeah.
And they should have been able to do that. It's
Yeah.
typical MLS dumb rules.
I think possibly as well the Whitecaps maybe kept hold of Salgado hoping that they could get a better trade or something for him than just sell him to Tigres. Because from what we've been led to believe, Tigres made an offer for Omar towards the end of October. Whitecaps rejected that initially. Omar came back for his end of year exit interview and wanted to know why the Whitecaps weren't selling him.
And he held his breath, right, for a bit, I think. That's what I've
Well,
heard.
he bit his tongue. He wouldn't do any interviews. We didn't get to speak to him. But he's gone now. Slamo, any tears over that?
No, not really. I thought he. First off, the whole thing with Bassi kind of, set me off right off the get-go because, we had a quality player there that, whatever, he was signed for 3 years and all of a sudden gone. So, that was a bit upsetting.
That was his first bust up on the
was
training
first
field
bust
for
up,
those
yeah.
that don't know in 2011. Well, first let me know about.
No, there was nothing he did, but there was a bust up during the season because I remember Dunfield, after one of the games, started yelling at Omar. And it was all over the forums and everything. Everybody criticizing Dunfield for going after Omar after a game. It was clear. It was right in the middle of the pitch.
Yeah,
and he should never have cast aspersions about his manhood.
Yeah.
No, and I think you need a balance, right? Like a striker needs to have some attitude and a bit of whatever, charisma.
Well, he
but
had
you can't go
attitude.
over. You can't go over the line, and I think he just pushed it too much, and the value wasn't worth the hassle, right?
And the thing is, the people are talking about he didn't have anything happen for the 2 years between 2011 and this year. He was injured and not around the pitch, so how was he supposed to have a dust up with anybody then, right?
Yeah.
So he clearly, once he gets on the pitch, whether it's his competitiveness, which is cockiness, whatever you want to call it, it gets the better of them, and he can't control it.
Well,
on
the
pitch.
UBC with Kakuta was just shocking,
Yeah.
right? And that was probably the biggest crowd I've seen at a pre-season type
inter-squad game.
Inter-squad. I've never seen
I missed
such a
that
big
game. I had to
crowd-
work that
crowd
day.
at
I
the-
couldn't see it. I was gutted about
So there
that.
must have been 200 people there, right?
Yeah.
And it was just like, wow, that's shocking.
Yeah.
And again, for anyone listening that doesn't know that story, Omar and Kakuta basically came to blows, and then Kakuta ended up getting sent off. And if they had been on opposite teams, you could maybe see heat of the game, but they were teammates. They're on the same side, which to me is just worse.
And Kakuta's not exactly known for his fiery.
No, he's a mild guy.
He's pretty mild mannered.
That was the thing. Like we've discussed this in the podcast over the season.
Kakuta on the pitch is a bull. He's a feisty guy. Not in a bad. I'm not saying that bad.
Like
way.
in training, I've never seen him fired up with.
Other
Although
people.
him and Eric were a little bit tetchy towards the end of the season with each other, but I think that was just they
in
were
the
fighting.
pool or
No, just to try and get places. And
But
stuff.
obviously, the for Omar, the biggest thing was the Perot, Mitch Perot,
Yeah.
his
Yeah,
attack.
that was
on
the
him.
final
And I'm gonna
straw.
say by the description of what happened, it was an attack. It wasn't even an attack.
Oh, yeah, I
it
was
was a
at that
complete
one.
attack on that one. So that was a vicious one.
When you've got Kendall Waston wanting to go and rip Omar's head off, you know that it's a bad.
The Bassi thing is an important thing too, because that ended his career with the Whitecaps, which also then shut him out from playing university.
Yeah, he wasn't able to get it back to SMU.
So whatever you think about his chances for the
yeah.
future, it was just all of a sudden Derek is totally screwed.
Yeah, and then once he was out of school, out of soccer for 1 or 2 years or whatever it was, when he tried to make a comeback, there was no chance at that point because once you're away from 2 years, you're done basically.
I don't want to take blame away from Omar because I think he probably deserves all of this for his actions because he's acted. Obviously he's gone about this the wrong way. This is just a really sad story all around. It's sad for the Whitecaps.
For sure.
It's sad for Omar. There's no question that the kid had skill. He had skill. He had ability. He's shown glimpses of being totally competent at this level, and he's got the speed, he's got the size, he's got the physical ability, he's got the touch. He has everything
He
that we would
started
need.
pre-season fantastic.
Yeah.
And I was really high on him, and I thought he was going to start in the team.
I know, and it's also sad because the Whitecaps, this was they really, whoever's decision it was way back in 2011.
No. It was Tater's decision. There's not whoever.
So whoever's
One of
decision
his
it was,
many
they
wrong
went,
ones.
but they went out on a limb to get this guy guy and say, man, he's going to be really good. We're going to turn him into this is, we're developing players. This is going to be it. And it's sad how everything worked out in the end that they're scrounging. And it, quite frankly, it's impressive that they got anything for him, that they were able to get, at least a transfer fee of some sort. Good on him, because it's time for everybody to move on.
Yeah,
and he's a nice guy. Like, you meet him outside out. Like, I've met him a few times outside of games, and he's great. Oh, yeah. He's great with it.
Well, he knows how,
events.
Essentially, he knows how to sell himself in the public.
But do you think that's really the case? Do you think he's an absolute psychopath that is so friendly outside of no?
It's just a lot of players, when they take to the pitch, the red mist comes over them. Like Joey Barton's a good example. Yeah. He seems like on Twitter, he seems a really well educated at times guy. I agree with a lot of his opinions, but he seems a nice enough guy. But when he's on the pitch, he becomes like this maniac, and the red mist comes over him. A lot of it was frustration. He wanted to play. He'd had those 2 years of injuries. And I was really rooting for him at the start of the year, and then I felt that he let everyone down just because he let his frustration come at the fore. But like Jay said, let's draw a line over it. We've talked enough about him. He's no longer at Whitecap. I don't care about him anymore. I know you will, Zach, because we had that discussion. But let's move on to another player that looks like he's not going to be here next season, Sebastian Fernandez. So before we talk about Seba, let's hear what Robbo had to say about him on Monday.
Seb was on a seasons-long loan with a very big option price. Unfortunately, we can't pick that option up, and we're probably going to lose Seba.
You said the price was too high for Seba?
Option price, yeah.
The option price.
Yeah.
Did you try negotiating with him?
Yeah, when you get a player on loan, it's always important that you're not going to get a good player for free. There's always a loan option price in it, and unfortunately that option price was too high for us to buy. We did talk about trying to bring him back on a similar deal, but that wasn't possible. So unfortunately we're going to lose Seba, and he's going to sign down in South America.
Did you really want Sebastian back, Fernandez, or on your trip have you found other options that may be better for you than bringing Sebastian back?
No, we spoke to Seba and his representatives about maybe coming back, and There was productive talks about it, but they hit a wall, if I can say it that way. And Seba and his agent had made it clear that there wasn't a possibility. So rather than waste time dwelling on that, I was down on the trip. So I look for another position now, and we'll find someone. Will they be as good as Seba or better? I'm hoping to find someone better than Seba. That's not saying that Seba wasn't a very good player. He done very well for us last year, but there's hundreds of players out there. It's important we find the right ones now.
So Robbo there giving the indication that Seba is not going to be back next year. He's going to sign for a South American club.
Good riddance.
Really? Is that
no, I'm just kidding. I just wanted to say that to see what Zach's reaction was.
I'm kind of torn on it because I was torn whether to protect him or not. He's been good in glimpses. I just don't think he is good enough for the Whitecaps to go to the next level. Great at shooting outside the box. Sure, a couple of glimpses when he was playing as an out-and-out striker. Don't know if I would want him as my main out-and-out striker, but what's your guys' thoughts if Fernandez doesn't come back?
Well, I want to ask Slamo this because you know a little bit more about Latin American soccer. It seems like to me that Fernandez is almost like a dime a dozen. Like you could find a player like that pretty easily in South America.
That's what Robbo was basically saying.
A winger, that can score goals.
Well, I think with Fernandez, I'm just glad he's not in the league. Like if he's going to leave the Whitecaps, I don't want him here because you see the class and you see the potential. And I think in Latin American players, when you look at like Martin Bonjour and the goal he scored, it's like the touch, the class, the style on the ball. I think that's probably a dime a dozen. But obviously, quality players aren't, or else everybody would have them, right? So I'm glad if because I'm with Michael, I'm torn on it as well. I'm 50-50, but if he's not with us, I don't want him in the league.
Yeah.
The only reason that I'm totally with you. I'm glad he's not somewhere else in the league. I do think that, and it's seeing history as well, that Robinson could go out and find another player that's as good or better to be able to play on the wing, or if he wants to change his setup a little bit, as a second striker or whatever. I think Robinson could find somebody better for that. However, my only concern would be that this would be would have been a breakout year for Fernandez because he was showing those things. Like he was starting to, at times he was picking out defenders and he was just causing them nightmares, and then sometimes he wasn't. Maybe this would have been that year that he settled into the league, did all right, and then next year would have been a massive year for him.
But you also have to take into account that Fernandez is a guy they signed. I think Robinson signed. I think he even said it. He said he signed him without looking at him, without seeing him play. He trusted somebody else's word.
Man.
Trusted somebody else's word on how good this guy was going to be. Now you look at it. Robinson actually's gone down to South America, checked out players. Martin Pertz checked out players. You think they've probably found somebody that's better, and that's why Fernandez isn't coming back.
Well, Martin Pert's still down there.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I think we've only begun to see the width, the breadth, the depth to Carl Robinson's connections in the game, and so I think the longer Robbo's at our club, the more we'll get to see how actually well connected he is within the game and the networks that he's actually a part of. So I think when I have no problem with that. When Robbo says this guy who I trust.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying it was a bad thing. I'm just saying he didn't see this guy.
Yeah.
Imagine if he sees the guy, what he was going to bring up, right?
Yeah. But I have a lot of faith.
I do too.
Fernandez, I'm with you guys as well. I'm torn a little bit because those goals from distance, I can't remember. Martin Nash maybe in USL scored a few from distance. I can't remember who scored a lot of goals for us from distance.
Kofi has.
Okay, but he's still here.
Yeah. But the goal actually has to be on the corner. Then he scores from distance.
He's also hit the pigeons up in the roof.
So that we're missing that. Just in the same way that we were missing goals from free kicks this year. I think
or goals. Period.
Yeah. I think we'll be missing that in Fernandez. I do also appreciate Fernandez as a person. He was a great guy. Another guy who was one day. My favorite story. It never played out the way I hoped. One day we're setting up the section or setting up T4 or whatever, and he and Nickel came in and they came up to us and they're like, today when we score, we are going to come here and we are going to bang the drum. And I was like. Yes, you will.
And did they score that?
No, we didn't score that. We didn't score that. But at the end of the season, they did in the South Side. They're there at the end. Like those are the kind of that's how it's hard not to really appreciate people who are like that.
And that's the concern because there's this year there was this big thing about how this was the greatest locker room that guys have ever played in and stuff. And I know everybody says that no matter what team they're on, they're in the best city, they're the best fans, they're in the best locker room. But you got a sense.
You don't think we have the best support?
I do. But if I moved to Seattle tomorrow, I would say that they're the best supporters. That's obvious.
I got this podcast now.
But this is the concern. If you start dropping these guys who are that kind of Latin soul of the team that they kept talking about. I don't think that it contributes that much towards the success of a team, but it sure does get you through some of those really rough road swings.
Well,
and stuff
I think that is what got them through at the end of the season. And so many folk, like even Andy O'Brien, who's been around the game so much, and Mauro Rosales had said it was a great dressing room as well. And Pedro said it was one of the best dressing rooms he's had. I mean, all these guys are coming in, and they're experienced guys. They've been around the game. Obviously, you can bring in more Latina or Latin American guys, and you can bring in more Latinas if you want as well.
That would improve the dressing room.
Yeah, that would go down really well. Or they might.
Well, it's the little things too, right? Like in the dressing room, when some player loses his girlfriend, for instance, which had an impact a couple of years back, right? If that dressing room isn't solid, that does have a bigger impact, more than we will ever know. Because
and I'm going to go back to what I said. Robinson is the key to that locker room.
Yeah,
and he'll bring in the right players, and he's the one that actually made that locker room.
Yeah, but it still will take a bit of time for them to bond. Also, the pre-season trips to Tucson and Portland, that's going to help.
Yeah, they're going to help.
I think it would be interesting to see what impact this might have on Nico.
Yeah,
I think it's probably a better situation where at least he came the first year and had the first foundational year with a fellow countryman and someone he could really relate to in culture and in so many other ways.
It says a lot too because they're obviously so high on Bustos and Froze that to say that we know these homegrown guys, they're going to be good, but we want to keep Mosqueda as well.
Yeah,
that says something about how much.
I know we'd love to see Bustos in every game, but he's 17 or whatever 18 he is. He's not going to be able to play every game, and
or be at the level that
because
when I spoke to Gordon Forrest early in the season, I think it was actually pre-season when I was saying what kind of impact could Frozen Bustos have, and Zach, you were with me when I had that discussion. He said it's all about managing them. Do you play them for maybe 4 games, 6 games at a time, then give them a break? I was like, folk will wonder, well, why are you not doing it? It's because they don't want to burn them out, and they want to keep them that when they are playing, they're at the top level. And then you have guys like Eric last year who hit that spurt, but then he went on a dip, but there was no one else that could come in, so they had to keep playing him. And then it wasn't happening for him. And it's tough for any player, but if you're a 17-year-old, that's going to start mentally playing with you. Mm-hmm. But talking about Mosqueda,
the thing is, I said this last year too when they brought in, it clearly looked like Fernandez was going to be the immediate impact, and Mosqueda might be a little bit longer, because Mosqueda, when we read up on him, was actually close to going to Celtic, but had an injury which derailed that at that time. So he was very close to going to Celtic in Scotland. So he's definitely got potential where people, saw something in him. So maybe Robinson didn't, it was going to take him a little while because it was his first time out of the Uruguay too. So, it takes a little while for a young player to get used to another country.
So going back to Jay's point about dismantling the South American influence, Fernandez looks like it's going to go away. Guy I love, and I know Zach's a big fan, Mauro Rosales as well, he's currently not re-signed, not picked today, so that was good in the expansion draft.
We've got 2 days.
Re-entry draft.
Yes, he's eligible for
re-entry draft. They've got that to come. So and then the other one is Johnny Leveron, and the option was declined on him. So let's hear what Robbo had to say about not picking up Leveron, but still protecting him in the draft.
Now, you haven't picked the option up on Johnny, but
Yep.
you are protecting him.
Correct.
What's the thinking behind that?
Because Johnny's option price went very high. Johnny's been here for 2 years, but he's still someone we want to try and keep at the club. So we know that there's a lot of interest in Johnny. So protecting him was a simple decision.
Carl, on Johnny, you decline the option, but you protect him. So should we read into that you're trying to renegotiate that deal?
Yeah, I am.
Back, or what?
Yeah, no, I could say here and say no, I'm not, but I am. Johnny's number went very high. Johnny's a big part of the club. I'll sit down with him and his agents, and we'll see if we can get a deal concluded, which is why I protected him. So, because I know there's interest in him, and he's someone that I want to try and move forward with.
You hoping to add it center back to this season?
Yes.
Someone to compliment Kendall.
Yeah, I want a good squad, and as a player, you want to say, right, I'm going to be starting. I want a squad of 22, 24 players that I'm all very happy with. We've got 3 competitions we've got to try and win next year. Not be involved in. We're going to try and win them. And is that high expectations? Yes, it is. But for a club this size, then we've got to set ourselves targets. And Champions League is going to be tough. Obviously, the ACC is always tricky. So we're going to have a number of games. So I need a big squad. And if you believe or think you're in the starting 11, and you might be mistaken, because I want a very fit, young, hungry squad that's able to cope and with the demands of 3 competitions. And it'd be nice if I've got 15, 16 good players that every week you're deciding who plays, or you're trying to pick who plays, and you won't know which the starting 11 is. And that's the aim of me in this off-season.
Now, Leveron was maybe a surprise for some folk, but again, he's a guy that seems to be coming in at a high ticket value in his option year, from what Robbo said there. Do you want to keep him around? That's another one I'm torn on. I liked him in his first year. I don't know, last year he was good. He started to come onto his game when he then had to go away and play with Honduras, and then he couldn't get back in the team. Who do you see going forward as the centre-back option? Do you see it being Waston and Leveron? Do you see them re-signing O'Brien and having Waston O'Brien? Is it going to be Waston and Dean? Or are they going to bring in another centre-back, which Robbo kind of was talking about there, that they might look to bring in another centre-back?
Well, I think you've got a known quantity in Leveron, and I think the thing with him is that he's not flashy. He's one of those guys that's really... he's such class on the ball that he doesn't have to look fancy, right? So to me, they've got to bring him back because they know what they have, and we don't have that quality on the center backs. And Robbo wants to play that possession, moving forward ball. He's the only center back probably we've ever had that I can think of, right? He's probably only
Well,
center
definitely
back
had
that
more
we've
than one.
ever had who can move the ball forward with some class, right?
He's no Anthony Noriega, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Malou's probably actually second on that list, oddly enough, but
what a waste that was.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
The thing about Johnny Leveron, I agree with what Sam was saying in terms of we have this known quantity. For the record, I would personally be happy if we went with the combination of Waston, Dean, bringing back Leveron on a good deal for him and for us,
and O'Brien,
Andy O'Brien as well, and also brought in a fifth center back who will fit within our cap and all that kind of stuff, but also can make a contribution.
Jackson Farmer.
Jackson.
I would say no to Jackson, actually. I don't think he's the guy that we need to bring in that would make a difference. We need someone that's going to challenge these stars.
Okay, but the problem with Jackson too is he is one of the guys whose development has been at least partially stagnated by the fact that we didn't have USL Pro this year.
Yeah.
And I think he can be reinvigorated by what he's doing for Canada.
Out of position in Charleston, he was getting played at right back, so that's not helped him.
No. Not as much, but I think he'll be reinvigorated by the opportunities he has playing for Canada, and hopefully US being one of the stalwarts of USL Pro. But so I think those four guys plus one other player would be great. The thing about Leveron, and I think I might have said this on the podcast before, is he's the kind of player who really needs to have a run on the side. When he doesn't have a run on the side, it's almost like he shows. It's almost like it shows in the way he plays. Like he doesn't feel the love. He doesn't feel cared for. He doesn't feel like he's really a part of things, and it shows in his performance. At least that's the way I see it. And so I think he's the kind of guy who needs the 6 to 8 games running the team that he can have alongside Kendall and or Andy, depending on how that all shakes out.
And I think if you actually check, I believe, I know I checked at some point last year, so I don't know if this still holds true because I know they got some clean sheets at the end of the season. But he was the player.
Yes.
As a starter, he has involved in more clean sheets than any other player.
Yeah. It was incredible. I was looking at that earlier this year too. It's incredibly high that run.
It
did involve some losses. It did involve some losses in that stretch that he was in there, but it also had an incredible run of clean sheets. Yeah.
Here's the thing I think about Leveron is that I think he would actually be the perfect partner for Waston, like long term. Waston's that ball winning, go get everything aggressive. That whole bit, be the loud noise. And Leveron's happy just staying quiet and being positionally smart and sneaking a ball. When you're not he's that quieter guy. He'll watch your back when when Kendall's doing something crazy.
Watch him in training. He should be our free kick take.
Oh, totally.
I know he's had I think he's had 2 chances in actual gameplay, but he's
got a hammer of left foot. I'm surprised they haven't worked this yet into when he hasn't run in the team. I'm surprised they haven't tried to isolate him on a free kick or one of those kind of like looping balls and he hammers it on the volley because he does it all the time in training for fun. He's got a tremendously cultured left foot that has a passing range, like you said, beyond anything we've ever had.
That pass, the one pass, as much as Pedro's great passes, when I think of that one pass at the first 10 seconds of the Portland game that he played to, must have been, was it Hurtado?
Portland home or away?
The Portland away.
The 4-3? The 4-3?
Yeah.
Whoever
it was, but it was like the best pass I've seen in a Whitecap from his left foot, better than anything Morales has done. And I agree. I think he needs a huge run of play and just leave him out
with
there
the same center back partner too.
Yeah, and I agree. Waston, that's a perfect.
His whole career here so far, he's just been rotated through different center backs. He's been the fill-in guy.
Yeah. That's why if they do bring back the 4 guys that Zach was talking about, you got Leveron and Waston as the starters. You got O'Brien as the veteran who will be able to fill a hole when there's an injury or suspension, because with Leveron and Waston there's going to be suspensions and injury. Well, maybe not injuries, but suspension. And then O'Brien's there. O'Brien can fit in. He doesn't need too much of a run to get it back into a team. And then you got Christian Dean, who can keep working on his game in USL Pro. Go from 3 to 2 balls and be able to figure that out.
And that's the thing too. When you look at not Betashar obviously, but if you have Waston, Leveron, and Harvey all in your starting back line, there is potential with the talk of Harvey last year and Robo pushing that all 3 are gone for Gold Cup, right?
There is potential, yes.
No way, Harvey.
I don't know. I wouldn't
No,
push him
Harvey,
out
no
and
way.
say
Did
no
you say
way for
Harvey?
the Gold
Yeah.
Cup.
No.
Sorry,
I didn't hear
Look
Harvey.
at their left back.
No, but I
The
think
Gold
Who's
Cup is
playing
a,
up Gold
that is a
Cup?
worry.
US
Yeah.
plays
That's
usually
big,
they play
big
a
worry.
B. They usually play a B
I
squad.
think
They won't play a squad, I think, this time because the fact there's no World Cup at all.
Well, let's just be thankful that Iran's
They
not
could
in
still
it.
be playing Beasley, and he's still in Houston.
Yeah.
I think he wrote about it, but I think that that's one of the things that Johnny has been hurt by his time here is that he hasn't taken
He
the
missed
jump.
out on the World
He
Cup.
missed out on the World Cup. He
Because he
missed out
wasn't
on
getting his
the
playing
jump into the
time.
first team.
Yeah.
So I wonder how much he is saying, or his agent saying to him, "Hey, go
That was
somewhere.
my first
Go
thought.
somewhere where you're
Yeah.
going to play, and we'll get you back where you belong." In
To
the
be
national
honest, if his agent's telling him the right thing, his agent should be telling him that, because if he's not guaranteed first team minutes regular here, which he isn't, it is going to hurt his international thing. So if that means a lot to him, he has to go elsewhere.
But
should
other than
be.
MLS, where is he? Is he going to go back to Honduras to play?
No,
Like, is that
No, he can go to Mexico. He could go to anywhere, Brazil, wherever he wants, or maybe even
I mean,
there
the
could be an
Mexicans
option
take
somewhere in
anyone,
Europe.
because they just take Omar Salgado. So I mean, obviously,
fair enough?
anyone can go there.
There's options in Europe, to Eastern Europe. The Eastern Europe, if his game fits there.
He's a quality player. He's
Yeah,
not
he
going
can
to
go
be
anywhere he
without a
wants.
club, that's
Yeah.
for sure.
The one thing I want to say about LeBron, though, is even if he does go, I still think that Robinson probably has a replacement ready for him if he does go. So to bring somebody in on his latest scouting trip, I think he's got people that if he doesn't know who's going to stay, I think he's got people to bring in ready to.
Well,
go.
again, I think he has that. I think he's going to bring in someone to push at least a little bit.
Yeah. See, the thing for when you talk about replacing Fernandez, as a forward player, that's one thing. But center back,
it's
to
harder.
have a center back with class,
and you
always like when you look at North America. What do? Right? As you get higher in your career, you go from striker to midfield. Eventually, you end up as a center back because you're an athlete. That's it, right? You're not a soccer player; you're an athlete.
And you need the chemistry too. The two center backs with the
It's true,
goalkeeper,
right?
two center backs, the goalkeeper, your holding midfielders. They all kind of need a good chemistry going on, but they do have that right now.
Christian Dean's a perfect example, right? He's center back because he's failed at every other position, so he's center back now, right?
He's tall and he's strong,
He's
and
tall
he
and
can
he's
head the
strong.
ball.
He can head the ball.
Jumps.
LeBron is like a center back who's got class. He can
He's
move the ball.
a ball playing center back.
And you see a little tiny thing like faking the pass from the center back and moving it around the striker, which you've seen him done 15 times. We never see that, right, in the league.
Bring back Johnny LeBron.
Yeah, bring him back.
Well, as Robo told us in episode 86 of the podcast, which if you haven't listened to, have a listen to that. It was our exclusive 25-minute chat with him. He's only going to let players go if he has someone lined up. So he says, if you see that I've let someone go, it's because you can be sure I've got someone else lined up. So we've talked about the players who may or may not be coming back. Someone who's definitely coming back is a young Canadian homegrown product, Caleb Clark. Bit of a surprise that, but let's hear what Robo had to say about re-signing Caleb.
Caleb Clark came back hurt and rehabbed. I mean, what did you see there that you wanted him back for? Did he get loaned out again, or do you want to see him?
No, we've managed to do a deal with Caleb because Caleb scores goals, and as everyone knows, it's hard to find players that score goals. And Caleb went away to Germany. I think he realised how good he can be, what he needs to do in relation to being successful at a professional club and a professional environment. And his attitude since he's come back has been spot on, and with obviously the USL team as well now and options of more games being made available, it was important we try and keep one of our homegrown players that we see a future for.
So Caleb's going to be back, which was a little bit of a surprise because I really thought he would want to go and pursue his career in Germany, but it's looking good, Zach.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, being in the stadium set up before games, you get to see Caleb doing all his rehab, and so get to connect with him and chat with him. And
he was usually the last one off the pitch too, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, well, he was like
before games.
Yeah,
that's because he was injured. He was hobbling.
Yeah, well, no, he was the first one doing rehab and stuff, and then he was there for a lot. So he was. It was. My guess would have been like, yeah, for sure, he's going back to Germany, and whether that was Augsburg again or somewhere else.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had a Curva Collective. We had one of our meetings with the front office a week or two ago or whatever, and we're standing in the lobby waiting for a few of our partners to show up, and Caleb walks in, and I was like, oh, because I knew his deal was up at the end of December, and I was like, "Oh, what does he do?" Like, I was like, "What are you doing here?" And he's like, "Yeah, I think I'm going to be around." And I was like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah." And then his agent / father came by, and they went up and had their meeting, and we had our meeting, and so yeah, I'm excited because. Again, Mr. Umbrella Academy, we've seen him score. How many goals have we seen Caleb Clark score for the residency that were of quality? And we haven't been able to see that translated in the first team, but from afar, we got to see him put that into practice in 3rd, 4th division in Germany with better players at a bit of a higher level than he was playing here. Yeah. And now it's like, will he be able to take that step? And I know maybe we'll talk about this later, but we are going to bring in a high quality, most likely designated player striker for 2015. But if Caleb Clark is given, let's say even a number like a third of the chance that some of our strikers were given in 2014, I'm really excited for what he might be able to produce.
Well, he would have been given the chance in the run-in, but they couldn't play him just as he was getting fit,
No.
which was just...
Well, just think of his MLS minutes, his very limited MLS minutes. I recall 2 opportunities where he got himself in a scoring position and just wasn't quick enough releasing the ball. But that's what you expect of
the Dallas away, or was it
a youth player? A youth player playing above his and now he's had some.
No, he's 18, right?
I think 18.
Yeah, 18 when he signed.
So you expect that from an 18-year-old player getting his first touch on the game was at BC Place in the box, right?
Yeah, but the only thing is at that time they were ahead in the game, and so they weren't really looking to score. They were just looking to control the ball.
Was that the cheapest 4-0?
I just remember the ball coming to him.
I think it was Dallas.
With the left
almost Dallas. He played Dallas away.
But got into that spot in the box.
But they were ahead. They were ahead in the game though, so they weren't really throwing the ball too much into the box either.
Yeah.
I remember that game because Sam.
That was great. The residency players came down into our section, and they were like cheering him on. It was awesome.
And they were just about to get kicked out, but we slipped them right into our section and move over. Yeah,
get out of the aisle.
Yeah. So, but the one thing I wanted to talk about, Clark, I think Michael, you were there when he first came back from Germany and was training. We asked one of the coaches about Caleb. And he mentioned that Caleb returned back from Germany, and he's with a different attitude than when he left the Whitecaps. Yeah. That was mentioned back in the summertime too when he first came back. So obviously that's carried forward, and it looks like that he could, be a good.
And that's part of life, and that's what you want a player to experience when they go out on loan.
Yeah,
experience something different. Experience how hard football is in other parts around the world, and what it means to be a professional. And then you return, hopefully, and are able to put that into practice here.
And let's give credit the other way, too, as well. Maybe the Whitecaps are treating him better now than he was being treated before.
Different coaching back then.
This is what I mean. Yeah. So we have different personnel that he's dealing with. So maybe he's more... so maybe he's happier now to deal with this, the current regime. And so it's just a better situation for both.
Or it could just be that he thought, God, these Germans are annoying. I'd rather be around Canadians.
Yeah, we all know that's not it. Do you want to play in MLS, or do you want to play in the League of the World Champions?
MLS.
Oh.
I don't think I'm good enough to play in the League of the World Champions.
I've seen the media.
I've got a shot.
I saw your debut in the media game, and you could make a contribution in MLS.
So there's going to be new players coming in. Going to be some new strikers coming in. The re-entry draft is coming up on Friday. People may get taken, but if they get taken on Friday, they have to get taken at their current salary or something like 105% of their current salary. So I don't know if anyone will get taken then. But there's a number, like looking around the league, of options that have been currently declined on players. There's a few interesting ones out there. Here's what Robbo had to say about the draft and whether there's anyone out there that's kind of interesting him.
Looking ahead to the re-entry waiver draft and the other players that teams have let go and not picked options upon, is there anyone that surprised you that's now available, or is there, I know you won't name names, but a few people that...
I think that, to be fair, you could see my list on my desk. There's 5 or 6 players that I think I've earmarked as possible players that I'd like to bring into the squad. Depends on obviously salary cap issues and what they want, their numbers, their agents, because obviously if options don't get picked up, then you're trying to renegotiate them down. The agents are trying to renegotiate them up, so but there are a number of interesting players out there,
So Carl says there's maybe 5 or 6 guys on his wish list from who might be available in the re-entry draft. Now, somebody who's not up on the waivers or trades or options declined or whatever, but I put this out on Twitter today. I just have a gut feeling Robbo might make a play for him. Robbie Keane, his good friend, Irish moaner extraordinaire. Robbie Keane. What do you think the chances would be of him coming to Vancouver?
Well, following some of your Twitter conversation there, I think the turf is prohibited, even though we all know we're getting new turf for the World Cup BC Place. I think that really is prohibited.
Well, the women will trample that, though. It'll be already...
Some of them are quite beefy.
I talked to you about this off air, but I think the fact that he's gone on record a couple times in the media about how much he likes Robbie Keane is actually proof that he won't bring in Robbie Keane, because you got to walk a fine line when you're talking about other players in the media. If you sign them later, how it can appear that it could have been tampering. And, I think Robinson's a smart enough guy that he doesn't want to walk down that road. That if he thought he was actually really going for, Robbie Keane,
he would never utter his name in public.
He would never, start going on media. So I think it's actually proof the other direction that, he keeps talking about him. That means he's not going to bring him in. Not that I don't think it would ever happen, because I don't think Caps would pay for him, and I don't think he'd play on the turf.
The turf is an issue. There's a thing today, the Swiss women's coach was having a pop at the BC Place pitch saying how dreadful it was.
Yeah, but it is dreadful. We all know that. The players all know that. Everyone who plays on it knows that.
But it's better than Empire 20 years ago.
Touché, Steve. But it's also I saw that comment or that article, whatever. And I'm like, well, they're not even going to be playing on that same turf. Like, I know it's bad now.
Well, it's like someone told me some hysterical woman was complaining about the BC Place pitch, and I thought it was Robbie Keane they were talking about, but it turned out it wasn't. Carl's going to be in his travels. I asked him on Monday what his plans for Christmas were, and after his jaunt around South America, he told us he's going to be going on a similar one to Europe.
What's your plans for Christmas? I'm going back on Friday to the UK, to Wales in particular. Then I'm up your neck of the woods in Scotland on Sunday, Monday. Then I'll be in maybe Europe for the following week, not in England or Wales, just looking at one or two things. Then I'll have about 4 or 5 days off at Christmas. Then I'll be off on my travels after Boxing Day again, looking at more players.
So Robbo mentioned there that he's flying back to Wales on Friday, and he's going to take in games in Wales, England, Scotland, over in Europe. We were kind of doing a little bit of digging about, Steve and me, to see who we might be looking at in Scotland, and you had a name that came up, or a couple of names.
Is Angus McWangus back on that?
Oh, well, we're basing this on the fact that the players' contracts are expiring because we don't think the Whitecaps are going to be paying a transfer fee. So a couple of players was Chris Commons
from currently at Celtic. Really, really good striker. He plays striker, midfielder. He gets goals though.
Yeah, and David Goodwillie, who is more of a central forward.
And I think if we had Goodwillie here. We haven't had a Goodwillie here since Terry Dunfield left.
Yeah, we haven't.
Is he a footballer or a James Bond character?
I'm going to throw in my Carlton Cole thing again from West Ham.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get that rumour to catch on. I think he's a big guy, another big bruiser. As I mentioned before, he was looking to come over to MLS before and it just didn't work out. I think he might have a look at him. But he's going to have a look in Europe as well. Maybe some South Americans over there. Maybe
back to Spain.
Yeah, maybe back to Spain, back to Malaga. Who knows? So it's been a busy week so far. Looks like it's going to be another maybe busy week with the 2 re-entry drafts. Lots of trades going on. We'll see what happens. We'll keep you up to date as always. Check our feed, AFTN Canada on Twitter. Just before we wrap up this episode of the podcast, let's go around the table, tell everyone where they can find you online. Slamo?
Slamo on Twitter at SSSLAMO. Slamo.
I'm sure you add extra S's to that every time you tell us. Zachary, where can they find you on Twitter?
On the Twitter, it's Zachary AM. The movement's at Curva Collective.
And what are Curva Collective doing now that you've not got games to go to?
Getting ready for 2015, my friend.
Getting all your tifo ready? Big Mauro Rosales tifo for me?
We're getting ready for 2015.
Excellent. Jay?
I'm at JAY_Duke on Twitter. And occasionally writing on Canadian Soccer News.
And somebody else who occasionally writes on Canadian Soccer News? Steve?
Do I occasionally? I don't think I've even done it occasionally. But you can find me on Twitter at WhiteCapsBeat.
Well, I think you do it a couple of times a year. And you also write articles then as well.
Sure.
I'm Michael McColl. As I said, you can find me on Twitter at AFTN Canada. Read all our stuff, AFTN on Canadian Soccer News, aftn.ca, canadiansoccernews.com. I'm also the Whitecaps beat reporter for MLSsoccer.com. So jingle bells, jingle all the way. Let's hope that the Whitecaps can jingle all the way to some great trades and some great acquisitions for 2015. Until next time, thanks for listening, take care, and
on the Caps!
When you're listening in some far-flung corner of the globe to the World Service of a Saturday afternoon, crackly reception, interference, cosy, marvellous. Somehow comforting, isn't it? You know, legendary names, fathers and sons on the terraces, cheesy peas at half-time, pint for dad, mum's at home making the tea. Oh, everything's all right with the world, isn't it? Saturday afternoon is football.
10 minutes left. Yeah.